Hello again, and thank you for tuning in to the 5-minute film review with your host, Think Fast Chris. Today I'm going to be reviewing a film that's come out recently in theaters titled The Meg. It is about Jason Statham fighting off a giant 70-foot shark, also known as the Megalodon. So this will be a spoiler-free review as always, so I will try not to get too much into detail while still trying to give you a pretty good idea of how things go. Now I must admit I am always a sucker for gigantic, larger-than-life monster movies, Jaws, Godzilla, King Kong, things of that nature, so I am a little bit biased when it comes to The Meg. There was another recent film that draws comparisons. It was with Blake Lively, and it was entitled The Shallows. Now, beyond the large shark premise, there's not too much to compare between these two movies. One was very much a tale of isolation, whereas The Meg is more of a tale of a bunch of different people coming together to fight a common enemy, which is, of course, the 70-foot Megalodon. Henceforth, I will refer to as The Meg. First off, in this case, I do feel that the acting in this movie, other than Jason Statham, is pretty lackluster, as to be expected from this kind of a blockbuster monster-type movie. Jason Statham, of course, is always on point, but again, I'm a little bit biased. You could put Jason Statham in pretty much anything, and I think that he's fantastic ever since the days of Snatch. Unfortunately, in this case, my biggest gripe with the casting decisions was Rainn Wilson. While I love him as a comedic actor and for his stint on The Office, I do feel that he's criminally misplaced in this movie. His lines are not very funny, his delivery falls flat. I really don't feel that he is very suited into a dramatic role. Now, that being said, I haven't watched very many dramatic films with Rainn Wilson in it, so maybe I'm speaking a little bit too soon, but in this movie, I do believe he was miscast. Another thing that interested me about the movie was that it did have a very multicultural cast and very much Asian influenced in this case, so I'm not sure if this was a joint venture with an Asian film company, whether Chinese, Japanese, whatever the case may be. But definitely a heavy presence felt throughout the film with a lot of the leading actors. Now, in this case, where I feel the movie suffers the most is when the shark is not on screen. It's just really not a very compelling movie to watch when the shark isn't tearing things apart. That being said, when the shark is on screen, everything is fantastic. I think it's very well paced. The action scenes are fantastic. The CGI, in my opinion, doesn't look cheap or, laughable, which is another big concern when you're doing these big monster movies. I feel like there are a few genuine jump scares and some things to get your heart pumping. You do feel on the edge of your seat for a good portion of the movie when the shark starts wreaking havoc. Another complaint that I have about the casting, or perhaps the direction of the movie, is that a lot of the secondary characters are really just background dressing. They don't serve a purpose to the plot. They are there simply to deliver a few comedic lines and then really just be shark food. Now, I know in these kinds of movies that it's hard to make that kind of a complaint because a lot of the point of a shark movie or a monster movie is to see people get eaten or killed. Now, that being said, you can still make background characters compelling to the point where you actually feel something when they get killed, and that's what's important to me, is that if a bunch of characters are getting killed off that I don't really care about, then I'm not really invested in the movie, and that's what it felt like in this particular scenario, that the shark really went about killing a lot of background characters that weren't very important, didn't have a lot of character development up to that point, so really I couldn't really care less. Where I felt the most compelled was where the main characters, like Jason Statham, were put in danger, and that's what really got me on the edge of my seat, because I feel Jason Statham's character was really the only character in the movie that was very well, developed and well written in this case. Overall, I do have to say it was a very fun movie for what it was, a big dumb monster action flick, so if you do like those, then this will be right up your alley. Now, I might recommend that you wait for it to come on Netflix or some kind of streaming or download service, because I wouldn't necessarily say that I would recommend you pay full price. I wouldn't say it's that good of a movie, but I'd say maybe a 5.5 out of 10.